Wow, that's so epic. Oopsie. Hi. We made it. We're a little late, but that's okay. This is our maiden voyage. So there's bound to be some, little bugaboos.
As they say, every plan is perfect until it meets with action.
Of course. But yeah, how are you doing today?
Pretty good, actually. Very excited to be doing this. It's a little bit different from almost anything else that I've been doing online, so I'm excited for that as well. I know that you had a lot of fun doing this with the Twilight Zone stuff, right?
Yeah. Space Couch is in the house. Space problems. Yes, he knows. He knows what's up. Those solar flares mucking up everything.
Well, there's that too. The irony that we might not be able to put on a show about sci-fi in the future because our own sun is spewing at us.
Figures.
I don't know. There's something ironic about that to me.
Is that whole geomagnetic storm thing still happening? Because I mean, where we are in the western
not as bad,
land,
not as bad as it was, but basically the sun has an 11-year cycle, and it is entering the top of its cycle when it's the most active, I guess is what you would say. The thing is, the last time that the sun was at its zenith or at the top of its cycle, and we were in the way of it, was in the 1800s, and a solar storm hit the US that literally destroyed all of the telegraph wires and all of the early mass communication stuff for months.
Dang, I didn't know that.
If one of those actually hits Earth and we don't just get the pretty lights that if our ionosphere can't actually fully contain it, we could see all tech go down. I mean, I was watching Elon Musk very carefully because his Starlink satellites are tiny. They don't have a lot of the extra reinforcement protection from like cosmic radiation and stuff because they're so much lower than other pieces, and that's how he makes it so inexpensive. Is he sends up thousands and thousands of these tiny little satellite box thingies. Not the most scientific
magical boxes.
But yeah, so he was saying that the Starlinks were under pressure, but they were holding out. And I can't wait, because if any satellites are going to get destroyed right before the ionosphere goes, it's going to be his stuff first, unfortunately.
Okay. Good to know. You know stuff about stuff. Cool.
Well, I've spent the last almost 20 years sick and mostly permanently disabled, so I have nothing but time to research random shit that comes into my head. I can go down any rabbit hole I want.
Solid. I mean, that's the way to use your time, though, right? So just absorbing all of the things.
When I first got sick and I wasn't really online all that much, we had cable and stuff, so I was just like constantly watching National Geographic and Animal Planet, and I was suddenly like randomly tossing out all these random animal factoids all the time.
Jack Tarlad.
Thanks, Jack.
Yeah. I love Star Wars. Yes. Represent. Oh no, I'm upside down. That's a crime. It's a little swirly dirtly thing here. Yes, Gandalf is my favorite Star Wars actor too. For sure. But we've been talking about I can't do this. We've been talking about doing the show for like I announced it like a month and a half ago or something.
Yeah, something like that.
It's like, well, we're just like so excited, and you said it's not something that you typically do.
I mean,
for those that do not know, Tiny but Fierce.
Oh yes, hi.
Tiny but Fierce. Hi.
This is your channel. Most people here probably know who you are.
I hope so.
I am Tiny but Fierce. You can find me on Twitter at Won't Be Boxed, and generally I do more like panel things. I go on people's channels to just talk about pop culture, geekdom, all the nerdy stuff out there, except gaming. I don't game, and everyone keeps mad at me for that, but it's true. Or video games. You do tabletop.
You do tabletop. What kind of tabletop games do you play?
Yes.
Which ones?
Dungeons and Dragons, and we're actually about to start a campaign where my friend Nate is gonna DM us a campaign in Rovia, I think, if I'm gonna remember how they say that. Basically, it's like dropping us in The Witcher.
Okay. Could be worse places, I guess. We're not wearing regulation uniform for a bridge officer. Glad you're here for it. Hey, Captain.
I mean, Jack,
my
if you
cat
would
knows.
like to buy us regulation uniforms and send them to us, we'll put them on for you. But
Sure. I mean, there's always that. So, so you, my dear, have been a fan of all the nerdy stuff. We're kind of cruising on the same wavelength, 1984 babies and all. I mean,
yep.
kind of, California girls too. Lots
Well,
of
I am
things in
now. I
common.
was I was originally from New York City, but I've been out here for
No,
5 years.
we don't talk
No.
about that. You're a California girl. It's all good. We're out here in no man's land, the non-free state of California, but we're doing our best, right?
Honestly, if someone out there could get Texas and Florida to change up their medical stuff a little bit, we could get out of here. I'll come real quick. Especially considering how many of my friends make jokes about California being could just fall off the face of the planet, or at least the continent.
I know, we're the butt of everybody's jokes.
Seriously.
Sad times. It is the bridge of the Enterprise D. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. So, oh, but you did say before in back long time ago conversations DMs that you actually were more of a fan of TOS, the original series.
Yes, technically my favorite of all of it is the original series. I was a kid when Next Generation like you. I was a kid when Next Generation came out, but my late uncle, my mom's younger brother, was like the biggest geek that has. I mean, he had the glasses, he had the pocket protector, he was that. I mean, there was a time in the 70s he was an actually like world famous, like where my fingers disappear. World famous dungeons master. And this is like before the books. He didn't use books. He had all of it in his head, and he could do it. Everything that you not need books and a computer to do, he did it all in his head. And
Wow.
he had actually been invited places to run campaigns or things like that. And he loved Star Trek. So when Next Generation came on, he was like, "You can watch that after you watch this." And he found like he found VHSs and old tapes so that I would watch TOS first. So I love Next Generation as well. Next Generation gets into the thing that I love the most about Trek is the world building. Like, if I'm ever healthy enough to go back to college, I'd be able to graduate with a double bachelor's in history and philosophy and a double minor in art, anthropology and religious studies. So
Oh, wow.
I like studying humans. I like all our different cultures, why different cultures evolved to be how they are, all of that. And Trek gives you that on an infinite number of planets. It's just an infinite number of how could societies have evolved and what would make them evolve the way they did. And I mean, like Angel One is such a great thing. On Angel One, the women are bigger, biologically bigger. So they became the ones that were in charge. Just like men are bigger here. So at that time in our history, they were the ones that were in charge. Like it made sense in an evolutionary manner. And that episode where you find out that technically all of the sentient races are slightly related because there was there's this early sentient species that went off into space and found no more life. They couldn't find anything else like them. So they went to lots of primordial planets and seeded them with their DNA. But the planets were in different areas with different suns and all this stuff. So each of those planets evolved life differently than the others. But that technically a Cardassian, a Klingon, a Vulcan, all of them share something at their most basic with us and with each other. That there's
the humanoid
all
variety.
Of life is connected in some way. Well, that was like really cool, but also gives you this ability to say, yeah. It's I guess to not to jump into a political sphere, but one of the reasons I hate the phrase equity,
yes,
is because equality is we all start at the same place, and we can all go totally different places. Some farther, some not so far, some crazy out backwards, whatever. I mean, the dude who first came up with the idea that there is a ninth planet, not counting Pluto, that is just dark and we've never been able to find it, was freaking laughed out of the astronomy community. Like, a planet that large and we can't see it in any way, shape, or form. Well, you can when you look at gravity. Now it's like practically a given.
Yeah, that works.
And I remember when I was a kid, people were like, there's this stuff called dark matter, and like 5% of the universe is made up of dark matter. And we're trying to understand dark matter. And I picked up a science mag a couple years ago, and they're like, 95% of the universe is probably made up of dark matter.
Oh gosh,
Like,
trust the science.
wow.
Trust the mainstream
Okay.
science.
That's so if you have equality, if everyone starts at at the same base, you can go anywhere. And some people will fail and some people will succeed. If you have equity, everyone has to end up at the same spot in the end. So there's no room for experimentation. There's no room for, yeah, you gotta let some people fail so that other people can make a fucking rocket ship that can fly to Alpha Centauri out of a nuclear missile.
I'm on board.
He didn't do to save the planet or to bring in some great age of wisdom and shit. He did it to make money.
I mean,
and he changed the universe.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? As far as like the DEI and everyone ends up in the same place, it's like, okay, so your journey, your work ethic, your drive to do things and build things, create things, it doesn't matter under that model, right? So what's the point? Where's the innovation going to come from, except for just like crazy obsessed people that just do it anyway, right? Because I mean, there are those types, but more often than not, I mean, if you can't fund your projects, if you can't support yourself financially and earn money doing it to, you know, further other projects, where does the innovation continue to advance? I mean, you could only go so far under that model, to me. I mean, if the end goal is everyone has all of the same, all the things, and you're limited by what everyone else can do or has, it's like, no, it doesn't work. I mean, we wouldn't get to where we are now technologically, or in many ways, in the advancements under that model. It doesn't work.
No culture has. China steals everything they have from the West or their allies.
It will.
You know how many you know how there's like hundreds of thousands of identity thefts like every few months or whatever, like it's just happening all the time. There's tons of identity theft out there. Turns out tens of thousands of North Koreans took American identities so they could get jobs working remotely in IT to bring money into freaking North Korea because everyone's starving and they've got no money. They had to fake being capitalist Americans to actually make enough money to feed their upper echelons.
Pretty remarkable that they were able to find a workaround, though, to like do something for themselves. I mean, it's not, on the up and up, but I mean, they're trying to survive, right?
Starvation does tend to breed ingenuity, but I mean, but the whole point is like, it's because socialism doesn't work, because communism doesn't work. Anything that stifles people from being able to do some wacky, stupid thing because they have it in their mind to do it, that will then possibly turn into something amazing that changes everyone else's life. If you're not allowed to have the freedom to do that, then you don't increase. Nothing moves forward.
Yeah, you're just stagnant, and everyone is held down to just the lowest base of that stagnancy, right? It's awful. I hate it. So we've got people here. Hey, everybody.
This is so much fun. We should say hi to the chat.
Yeah. Hi, chat. We've got Space Couch. We've got Will that stopped in from the Cellulite podcast. I haven't seen Will in a long time. My channel just broke 1,000 subs this past week. It's crazy.
Oh, congratulations. That's so cool.
You. I was talking about doing like a celebration stream, and I'm just like, when am I going to do that? And then it's like, well, has the moment passed by? Is it
yeah, it's one of those, I want to do something really cool and really special. And while I'm thinking about it, it's now taken so long that it's now kind of weird to do it at all.
Yeah, awkward. It can be a little awkward.
But okay.
Snafu says, hello, Tiny.
Howdy, Snafu. But okay, as much as I am technically socially conservative in a lot of ways, I'm pushing a rebellious streak in people. I'm so bad at getting things in the mail, and I'm so bad at like taking care of things when they need to be done, that I now think that if you forgot to send someone a birthday card and it's 4 months later, just send them the card. Getting a random card in the mail is actually really fun. I've had it happen a couple times because I was in some chronic pain groups. For some reason, my birthday was wrong in the bio. So I was getting a whole bunch of presents in June, and I was, or like not presents, but like cards in June, and I was like, oh, this is so cool.
Don't
So I
doubt
mean,
yourself. If you
so
find the card in your glove box or in between the seats of the car, still send it.
still send it
Because
if
I've been
there's something
guilty of not
special that
sending it because it's
happened.
like, oh, that's embarrassing. But I mean,
Yeah, we
you
should
make
all
a good
stop
point.
being. We should no longer be embarrassed about it. I think we should normalize. If something happens that you want to celebrate and you realize that it was last month, okay, celebrate it anyway.
All right, 4 months from now, I'm going to do a celebration stream for my 1,000 plus subs that I got last week. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it someday. Oh, man. So we are planning to do this show once a month for now. This is our maiden voyage into space. And I don't know, we'll change it up. I don't think we're going to go linear, but I think this one that we started out with, it's kind of a more of a heavy-handed episode, to be honest. It's a little
definitely
heavy to start
on
it
the social awareness and conversation type stuff. Yeah.
But there's lots of fun episodes, goofy episodes. We'll probably, go back and forth between the seriousness and the more fun, goofy, silly ones. There's tons of those. I mean, everyone, we are not merry men, or I'm not a merry man, as Worf says. But, there's a little of this, little that. It's a variety show. I mean, you found your way here, so.
And I've never actually sat down wearing this shirt before. I feel like I'm going to be pulling up a card all night as it rides up.
Perfect. You're in the mood. So today's episode, we'll get going here. It's season 2, episode 9, The Measure of a Man. Very much a pivotal episode of the Star Trek series. People have done like thesis statements, written papers on it, and as far as like where we are now, as far as how much AI is taking over our day-to-day existence and stuff, it kind of makes those wheels start to turn a little bit to go, at what point do we get to something like this? And then what do we as a human species society, what do we do if that were to happen? So I have a look.
Yeah, and it seems to be creeping up on us faster and faster than anyone had any real expectation of.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a few years ago. It seems like you call like the pharmacy or whatever, and it's an automated system. You press one, do the things. Now in more recent times they have a voice that talks. You tell me what you want. My mom.
It sounds more and more human.
It sounds more and more human. And my mom, she's actual boomer. I get a little resentful when people call me a boomer because it's like, no, I grew up with an actual boomer. You do not understand. So one of the last times I talked to her, she was going off about the pharmacy bot, right? And I'm like, it's not that sophisticated, actually. I mean, if you knew what was happening in other, quadrants of technology, you should be scared. But this one, not so scary, Mom. I mean, they're listening for keywords. They don't care what you're saying. They're just trying to pick up keywords to redirect you to the next person, right?
Well,
she could.
My mom is actually also
that.
A boomer. My mom is also a boomer, the very end of the boomers, and she actually teaches people how to use certain softwares. She's a Microsoft Office expert, and like if you use Excel a lot or you need to write in Word and you need like she helps make people become more efficient, or at least she did for decades. Now she's doing other stuff, but because of that, she wasn't so tech like unaware. But her attitude was when it all started happening, she's like, I don't want technology that talks to me. I don't want anything in this house that is talking to me.
It's a little freaky at first, right? But I mean, being the next down from boomers and siblings being the Gen X age or whatever, and us being more of that transitionary generation from analog to more digital.
Yeah.
I mean, we grew up with the changes that were happening super fast technologically. And so we rolled with it a lot better than most, I think, would.
Probably.
But, and then you have the generation after us. What are they, the Zoomers? Well, they didn't know anything else. So
I basically say we're not actually millennials. We're not Gen X. We're the Oregon Trail generation.
Hell yeah. We die of dysentery. We never make it to our destination. We get bit by every rattlesnake. We drown in every river. We we die all the time. But we keep at it. We keep going. We try. I don't think
I
I ever
remember
saw
being,
the
I think it
end.
was seventh or eighth grade. We were doing some type of project about westward expansion, and they talked about the buffalo soldiers were mentioned and how many buffalo they were killed. And this kid in my class was like, "All that meat would have spoiled. No one could carry that many buffalo." I was like, "Yes, he's right." But the whole point, the only reason he knows that is because he played Oregon Trail.
I mean, you learn from your failures, and we failed a lot. Our generation failed a lot. Oh gosh. Oh,
So
measure of a man. I, I'm having fun. Are you having
I'm
fun?
having a lot of fun too, but we can't
Cool.
have too much fun that we don't actually do what we're supposed to be
Do
here
the
to
thing.
do.
Yeah. So this episode explores profound ethical and philosophical questions about AI and the nature of sentience. Okay, so we're gonna do a little run through for the episode. It's like what 25 years old, so if you haven't seen it, sorry, spoilers ahead. Beep beep. It's fine.
Actually,
This is
it's
basically
got
like
to be more
watching
like
the episode.
35 years old.
Oh yeah, season 2. It is more like 30. Good lord, I forget there's like this whole 10-year span of time that existed, and so like I'm forever 20 years ago is the 90s.
Yep.
Like the mid to late aughts to 2015 just doesn't count in my head math. Does not count.
I would agree with that. Absolutely.
It didn't count. It didn't happen. Okay, so this is old. If you haven't seen it, I'm sorry. This is basically watching the episode. So we're gonna breeze through it, and
Mhm.
if inspiration strikes, just speak up. So Captain's log, stardate 42523.7. They're en route to the newly established Starbase 173 for port call. Crew rotation is scheduled, so they're going to have people cycling in and out, and they'll be offloading experiment modules.
Slice of
But
life.
so the show, I thought this was a cute little way to introduce, the story to follow, because they start off with them playing poker. Like, they frequently play poker in the show. It's not like it's shoehorned in or anything. This is a thing that they normally do.
Yep.
But it really highlights to me, and I think this was the intent, right? That while Data is very good, he's very proficient. He knows all the rules. He can joke around even if he doesn't totally get the jokes, but he misses the nuances, right? So
Yeah.
he's like, okay, so game is 5 card stud, nothing wild, ante up. I don't know enough about the game to even know what that means, but it's a
okay,
thing.
I do.
You do? Of course you do. Enlighten us.
Well, 5 card stud is everyone gets 5 cards like starting instead of you can play it so that you get 2 cards and then you bet and then everyone gets another third card, you bet, and then everyone gets, like, you can go around that way. And so this is your starting out with all 5 is what he's saying. At least I'm pretty sure I remember that correctly. Someone in the chat will tell me if I'm wrong.
They will. If you know, tell us.
I'm going to absolutely keep up with this, but I'm going to go off camera for just a few minutes. Just letting you know.
Sounds good. But you'll be here talking to me.
I'm here and we'll be talking.
Okay.
Yeah, and yeah, because this is interesting because Data has issues with bluffing.
Yes.
I remember there's always been stuff about him and bluffing.
Yeah,
because he tries to watch everyone and he's like, he should be able to tell if someone's lying from like minute stuff, but he doesn't always get it right.
Well, and based on he's doing those calculations all the time, he's looking at the cards that are available, and so he's automatically doing all the head math or computer processing math, whatever, to determine what the likelihood and probability would be to see the other cards and all that stuff, right? So
exactly.
when Riker ends up winning with the worst hand, he doesn't understand it. So, and Geordi's like, he bluffed you, Data, and he's like, it makes very little sense to bet when you cannot win, but that's the whole underlying
this episode. And there's that one other episode where they bring in that alien whose entire species is nothing about but calculations, and they have this weird game, and it's like these things on their fingers or whatever, and because it's about calculations, Data should have won easily, and he gets trounced easily, and the alien species is unbelievably dismissive and so arrogant, and Data's like, he's afraid there's something wrong with him. And
I
then he
remember that
finally
one.
realizes that it's not necessarily about playing to win, it's playing to not let the other person win. That is a strategy, that is a thing. And he ends up at the end of the episode going back up against that obnoxious alien. And the how good you are is determined by how long the game goes on or whatever. And it's like 25 minutes, 30 minutes or something. And the alien is sweating and he's losing his mind a little bit. And then he finally gives it, goes, "That's not how you play." Ah, and he runs away. And everyone's like, "Data, how did you do it? How did you beat him?" He goes, "I didn't beat him. I just realized I could take everything based on stopping him from doing what he wanted to do. But he didn't actually win." They go, "Yeah, he gave up and walked away. You actually won." That's still a win, Data.
Perspective, right? I mean,
Exactly.
it's the
Data's
human
all about
side.
Data's all
Yeah.
about perspective, and he's all about giving us, the audience, different perspectives, seeing things in a way
Yeah.
we wouldn't necessarily see them.
Like the card game Screw Your Neighbor. I've never heard of that one, but
Never heard of
it
that one
sounds
either.
interesting. The Battle of the Wills, it sounds like. I mean, yeah, that's really what it is, right? Just
Yeah.
block them. I don't want you to win. I'm not trying to get to the finish line. I just want to keep you from getting there. Okay.
Yep.
So Instinct Data. Instinct. The game is 7-card high-low with a buy on the last card. And just to make it more interesting, the man with the axe takes all. This is Greek to me. I don't know what she's saying.
Okay,
But
so she's saying this is going to be a 7-card game instead of a 5-card game because you can play poker in many different variations.
okay.
I I think the high low is like there's a limit on how high you can bet and a limit on what little you can bet for this particular round. And buy-in on the last card, I guess, means that they're just going to do the betting once all 7 cards have been dealt out.
Thank you.
The
I
man with
didn't
the
know
axe
you were a
is
translator.
saying,
My own supercomputer.
I think the man with the axe is technically one of the jacks, and the idea is that the man with the axe takes all means that jack is wild. It can do anything. It can beat anything else. And I'm sure I will get clipped, and or the chat will tell me if I'm wrong.
The more you know. Bondian says, "No, I busted him up," was what Data said. I love that episode.
Yeah, at the very end of that episode with the alien, they're like, "You
Strategy
what?" He
one.
goes, "No, I busted him up," because he gets to be a little human-esque at that moment. That was really fun. Yeah.
Holy moly, we've got Good Logic Joe. High low means
Oh,
pot is
thank
split
you.
between the best and worst hands. Thank
Good.
you, Joe.
No, I wasn't totally crazy, but not quite accurate.
Saving the day. Oh, so this is the new space station where they're rendezvousing with all the others.
Which they worked
And
really hard to make look supposedly very kind of, if you could make a random group of plates and glass in space look hopeful. Supposedly the idea was this was to be very it was supposed to be a very positive image of space and in the future. And I always find it really interesting because much later with Deep Space Nine, they very specifically wanted to show when the Cardassians build a space station, it's really sinister and dark looking.
yeah,
Whereas when we build a space station, it's very open and very accepting and like, come.
not ominous at all.
Yeah.
It's inviting. It's positive image. You know, PR team was really focused on that image. Stay on brand. But fun fact, so John Eves, he is he's been part of the Star Trek universe since the 80s for like 40 years or so. And he's a designer, so a lot of the spaceships and space stations and all that, he designed a whole bunch of that stuff. I actually met him in person, kind of like keep in touch with him a little bit here and there. It was the
That's
weirdest
so
thing.
cool.
So when I have some of his original drawings that he gave me too, which is awesome. So back in the day, it's like picture this, 2007. Model mayhem was a thing, and everyone wants their picture taken, you know. So so I created a profile, and you get a whole lot of like creepy weirdo guy with cameras, right?
Yeah.
Guys with camera,
Oh,
and
yeah.
so my husband went with me on the shoots though, and it was like, "Hi, I'm John Eves, and I do this and that." I'm like, "Holy crap! Like, what are the odds of just randomly meeting?" I mean, he's more than just guy with camera, but I mean,
Yeah.
like,
No, but yeah.
but the odds, and you know, he had a home out in the desert land and moved away out of state, but he comes back every now and then. I'm like, "Hey, you
Oh,
want to be
that's
on
so
the
cool.
podcast?"
Well,
So
if you ever want to like take him out to dinner or something, I'd be more than happy to come help pay for the ticket.
Sweet. Yeah, I mean, he's got so many stories. He gave me a piece of the Batcave, the actual Batcave, the Batman, the what's his name?
89.
No, the Batman Returns.
Oh, so 91,
No,
I think, is when that one came out.
I can't remember. It's
The,
an old one.
the Michael Keaton ones were 89, and I think it was 91.
But yeah, he's
But
so
that's so
cool.
cool.
I know. So I'm trying to snag him for a podcast sometime. If he does, we can do it on this
Oh
program.
yeah, totally.
I'll
Tag
keep at
team
it.
them.
Oh my. Hey, phrasing. Okay, so we're at the space station. Jean-Luc Picard runs into a former flame of his who was, I think she was like a prosecutor of some sort
Hmm.
in a past life, but she'd been away from Starfleet for like 10 years or so. Yeah, 10 years. I have it on the screen. Philippa Louvois. It's been 10 years, which I have questions later on about this little dynamic.
Hmm.
So, and how proper it would be in conflict of interest and all. Anyway, okay.
Yeah.
So, do a little bit of catch up. She's in charge on this new office. She doesn't have staffing, so they're kind of just like setting the lay of the land as far as the things to come. There's a
Because
lot
they
of
mentioned it's
build
a
up.
brand new space station, which means it's a newer part of space that they haven't really been in much. So there's not a lot of colonies, or there's probably some like what we would have called homesteaders or whatever out there, but there's not a lot of people to need the actual legal system to be up in this sector just yet. Not a lot of people really gonna go, hey, he stole some of my space cattle. Like, I mean, it's not happening all that much just yet.
Not yet. Okay. So this is where we kind of get a feel for her background, that she prosecuted him in the Stargazer court martial.
Hmm.
Just doing my job, and it's we're watching older people flirt. It's a little it's something, but also he's calling her out. Like, you always enjoy the adversarial process more than actually arriving at the truth. So they're painting a little bit of a picture of her character with
Yeah,
very few words. I
yeah,
like it. They're
and
very crafty.
yeah, and it was really funny because it was very obvious that in Next Generation they were trying to. There's a TOS episode that basically the entire episode was all about why women can't be captains,
Yikes.
and it felt very much yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
it is a it's worth like it's one of those you sit with your friends and you watch it so you can throw popcorn at the screen. I mean, I'll admit the TOS was in the 60s, and there are definitely some things here and there that it's like, oh boy, all right. But I can look at it and go, it was the 60s, and oh my God, look how far we've come. This is a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Absolutely.
TNG had a very serious mandate to try to override, retcon, fix that specific episode where they kept putting all of these females in high-ranking positions as admirals, as other captains. Um, there's the episode where that weird alien parasite thing happens, and the youngest, uh, the first youngest person to get their own freaking ship was this young female black who'd like been a star cadet and then did something amazingly heroic and had just been given like captaincy at like age 22 or something crazy.
Oh yeah. It's like,
um so like they were constantly saying we were wrong. But to me it's funny
oopsie.
because some of these people that they wanted to have women in positions of authority, but they also never thought about the fact that a lot of those positions of authority were being going to be used and as antagonists. So a lot of times
Mm.
you had these women in charge who kind of sucked.
Yeah.
And it was
Sounded
like,
good in
okay,
theory,
you're
but
showing me all the reasons why some women maybe shouldn't be
right.
put in positions of authority.
Okay, so not to go too far up, but I think there's a point to be made here that I kind of ruffled a couple feathers of some people on Twitter, um, when I was like, okay, you saw the thing about Congress, right? The Marjorie Taylor
Yeah.
Greene and AOC. the eyelash comment, the bleach blonde butch body. I mean, the back and forth was just ridiculous. And it's like, women, right? So another gal was like, yeah, this is a great example of why women shouldn't be in government. I'm like, agreed, or positions of power. Well, that kind of upset my not like feminist adjacent friends, but ones that are like, no, 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 women should have places in government and all that stuff. It's like, yeah, but I personally, like, I
No,
worked as a
I think there
dispatcher.
are
I
some
didn't
women.
like,
I think there are some women that would be
sure,
great to have in positions of government and positions of authority. But by saying that because 50% of the population of the country is female, like 50% of those jobs or more need to go to women, that's stupid.
yeah.
I mean,
What qualifies you for the
you have
position
to keep
here?
you got to be careful with it, and you have to keep the process as clean as possible. But it should really be the best person for whatever job. And sometimes it's a female, and a lot of times it's not with certain types of jobs. Also, I also
But
love that whenever you hear about the feminists talk about like, well, there aren't 50% of all the CEOs aren't female yet. It's like, how many of the garbage collectors are female? How many of
I'm
the
going to talk about that. The
how many
oil
of the guys
field
who work down in
workers.
the sewers are female?
Yeah.
What about the riggers? Those guys out on those oil rigs that their entire bodies get wrecked. They get paid huge amounts of money for their job. Don't you want women to go do it and try that? No, no, they don't. They just want women to have 50% of the cushy jobs.
Right.
But if you're not willing to take 50% of the shitty jobs, you don't deserve 50% of the cushy jobs. You deserve the job that you are able to do. I love my mother.
Absolutely.
I think she's very attractive, but she's a big lady. She's a very big lady. I don't need some scrawny, my size female firefighter unable to get her out of our 6-story apartment in New York City.
Yes.
No.
100%. Oh boy.
But yeah, so we have
We
gone
we
down
are
another.
different. We are
We
different.
should just call this Star Trek the Tangent Generation.
And tangents. So Admiral Nakamura comes in, and we've got asshat Commander Bruce Maddox. I hate his face. It's
Yes, he
so.
really like. I feel bad for that actor, but he does look like central casting for we need an obnoxious know-it-all.
We need you to look like a guy that everyone just wants to punch in the face. Just every scene. Just
Yeah, basically.
whammo, like right there. He's got like this like smirk the entire
Yep.
time, and but he has an interesting proposal for you. But we'll talk about that later. I want to take a tour of the ship. Okay. But so this entire scene is so uncomfortable because Maddox is walking in and he's like creeping, looking at looking
Yeah.
at Data as he walks around, and Data just like I don't know, you can tell like he feels the eyes on him, like looking over his shoulder and like but
There's definitely a bit of uncomfortableness. It's
then there's
just Commander
Wesley.
Maddox, you do some work on your Android. Excuse me?
What's
Like,
wrong with him?
A, he's sitting right there.
Right, so they're already talking about him as if he's not a person.
Yeah,
When
like that he's a piece of the ship almost. Like he's
right,
just a machine. And it's interesting because they did a really great job of showing us that that's not who Data was in the very first episode at Farpoint, because you have Riker just basically ask him, so you're an android, right? Yeah. So your rank is just given to you because that would you be the best position in the ship, basically. He's like, no, I went to the academy. I graduated top of my class. I then served on this ship and this ship and this ship, and I've done everything anyone who has this same rank as me has done. And you're like, I mean, and it's one small conversation that ends with Riker saying, nice to meet you, Pinocchio, which is, of course, like the perfect analogy for who Data is. And you've got back when entertainment was good, when you could literally have one short fucking conversation, tell everyone everything they need to know about what's going on, no long exposition, no ridiculous messaging, just, are you this? No, I'm not. I'm this. Oh, okay, cool. Let's go.
keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate it. Don't I mean,
Yeah.
and to be fair, like Star Trek TNG did have a lot of what you would refer to as more like woke like episodes and question, but that's just Star Trek for forever. Questioning norms, questioning like what you
Exactly. It
think
was
you
always
know.
about one of the things I loved about Gene Roddenberry was he truly believed technology could give us a better future. He looked at humanity's history, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And to be honest, if you look at most of human history, it's not a fun place to be.
Not so much. People
And the
nowadays,
idea that technology could truly create equality between genders, between everything else, that technology could literally give everyone this technology could give everyone equality, the same place to start. And
right?
the stars were literally the limitless. And I love that. I love that beautiful, hopeful image of the future. And I believe that good sci-fi, good entertainment helps build to that better future. And stuff that they put out these days helps build to a horror. I think a lot of the stuff they put out today, not only is it not entertaining,
Mm-hmm.
but they're pushing a social agenda that they think is important, but they're pushing it so far and so hard that they can't see any of the negatives, any of the pitfalls, and they're creating literally some in certain areas in certain ways hell on earth. Whereas Gene was trying to give us the blueprints to create a heaven on earth and then take it out into the stars.
Right. And
And
Island
so
makes
I don't mind the way he does some of the woke SJW stuff, because
sure.
also a lot of times it's it might be kind of pointing out which side they want you to fall on, but it was also at least a little bit think about it. At least
Yeah,
think about it.
definitely thought provoking, and you know, it made you want to have conversations with people about it. So
Yeah,
like Island said, they were good at asking the questions more than preaching the answers. So
exactly.
question everything.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
It's the only version of Star Trek that compete with Star Wars. Yeah, Star
Okay.
Wars. Star Wars went by the wayside for me. But anywho, so
Well,
Commander
I
Maddox.
remember being a kid
Oh,
and
go ahead.
looking at my uncle and going, "You can like both now."
No, there's two teams.
My uncle would have agreed with you.
Oh, that face. Look, Picard's seeing it too. He's like, I want to punch him right
Yeah,
in the nose.
like seriously.
He's greasy. So he's Picard is introducing
Yeah.
ASAP Maddox to Data, and they're like, actually, we've already met, you know each other or whatever. And so he evaluated Data when it first applied to the academy. So your onboard toaster who had to go through an academy to graduate and do all these things and achieve all these accolades or whatever, it first applied to the academy. Real cool. Cool
Yeah.
guy. It's like, read the room, buddy. It's like, just you're going into this ship with this captain who this guy is one of his first officers, right? Know
One of his bridge
know where
officers.
you are. Yeah, one of his bridge officers. um Read the room a little, body language, I don't know, but he's just such an
I think
asshole.
he's supposed to be like autistically smart or something, so that he
Eh,
doesn't have to have any interpersonal
well, that's
skills.
convenient.
Yeah.
Oh,
Um.
I'm an asshole, but it's because I'm autistic, so I'm just gonna keep being an asshole.
Oh,
Cool, right?
and he was part. He was didn't just evaluate him. He was part of a committee, and he was the one person who tried to stop him from going. So already, I'm sorry. By definition, this guy's already
What?
biased.
Yeah, the only member of the committee to oppose his entrance. Hmm. maybe maybe they should reevaluate who's going to be the person interfacing or going to take a look at the android. I mean,
Yeah,
if
exactly.
there's an entire, yeah, I have questions.
Yeah.
So he unveils his plan. He's going to disassemble Data, because he started following the works of Data's creator, Dr. Noonien Soon,
Who
and
he
he's
isn't a 1/10 of smart as.
no, 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 no.
Well, like,
But
if you're
but
but
he
that's
wants
the
to
other
carry
thing.
on the work.
If you supposedly have enough of his work that you think you have the ability to disassemble and reassemble Data, then you don't actually need Data. Assemble your own damn android. And when you've done that and proven that you are actually anywhere close to Dr. Noonien Sung, then maybe Data will talk to you about helping him upgrades or do something or whatever. But just because you've been picking up
Replicating,
somebody's
duplicating.
diary doesn't mean that you can do the same thing that they could do.
have you known people like that? They're like, yeah, I read a book on
Yes.
how to fly Apache helicopters, so I basically know how to fly Apache helicopters. It's cool, bro.
Yeah.
And they're
Yeah.
not even like, laughing. It's not a joke. They really think that they read a thing or they did some simulation, and it's like, you're a pilot now. Oh, okay. Sure, Dan.
I've seen it in multiple different things and multiple different. There are always people who are going to be like that for some reason. It seems to be unfortunately, a human characteristic. But we should at least be aware of it and look out for it and try to beat it down in ourselves if it ever arrives. And I guess we can't actually beat it out of others, but that'd be nice.
I mean, we could try.
In Minecraft.
In Minecraft, allegedly. But yeah, so there's some conversations that happen in between these two clips here, or 2 shots. So Data says to him, I don't feel comfortable with this. I don't feel comfortable doing this because I don't feel confident that he has the skills and knowledge or experience enough to put me back together, like you were saying. Like,
Yeah.
keep doing your homework, bud. You're not there yet. And even Picard goes back and forth with, can we compel him to do this? I mean, can we? I mean, it furtherances, our knowledge and will further Starfleet, and all these technological advancements.
If he could actually do what he claims he can do, and that doing this with Data would allow us to have more Datas, more androids that can be as yes. Maddox
Definitely has a definite hate boner for Data.
But I mean, the idea is that we could have lots of Datas and that they would be helpful for every ship and every crew.
Yeah. Fly a fighter jet, bruh.
Or guys who spend years playing Call of Duty and then think they know how to use weapons.
Mm-hmm. Oh gosh. So we get a little glimpse of Picard even like struggling. I understand your objections, but I have to consider Starfleet's interest. And he's like, yeah, no, still not going to do it. Nope.
Yeah.
And gives the example of Lieutenant Geordi LaForge.
Mm-hmm.
His eyes are far superior than all the other human officers, so why aren't they forced to replace their eyes with cybernetics? Oh, because he's a person. He's a human with freedoms and rights and stuff. And it's like all this time he believed he did have rights, and even Picard said he has rights.
Yeah.
Yep. Now it's like rugs being pulled out from under him. It's like, no, actually, you don't. Yikes. Yeah, we all know what happens with Lore. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, and that was the other thing. Like, I was sitting there like, if you were trying to turn artificial life against humanity, the way you're talking about him and the way you're going about this would be the best possible way to do that.
Let's subjugate them and abuse them.
Are you trying to turn him into Lore? Do you want him to go join his evil brother? Is that what this is? Like, are you? Or are you just idiots? Oh, no, you're just idiots. But then you have to accept that technically all of these people who are all high-ranking members of Starfleet are fucking idiots. And that's not a happy thought.
No. And so they say, okay, he can refuse to undergo procedure, but they're going to transfer him anyway. So you're going to come with us for, go with asshat Maddox, whether you like it or not,
So I will, and I was sitting there, I was like, he should freaking resign. I remember this the first time I saw this episode. I was so angry.
Hellhound, I
argue on Twitter. Hellhound, you might very well be. And thank you so much for $4.99. That's amazing. I never thought we'd get super chats on our first episode. That's so cool.
Thank you for the pity.
Thank you so much, Hellhound.
No, you guys are great. Hellhound's great. Let's see. You don't have rights when you join the military, but this isn't the military. This is
yes and no. That was always one of the things. Starfleet is run in a military style. We have the ranks that are military. We have the way going out for long periods of time would be done very similar to military. We've got the bases and things in a very militaristic way. Partially because, I mean, if you watch Enterprise, like, they tried to be just sciencey and not all that militaristic at all, and it kind of went yeah, other aliens aren't necessarily so nice, and they might want to like break your ship. So you need to have
Yeah.
some firepower, and you need to have some discipline. And I always thought it was interesting that Starfleet existed first for Earth and Earth colonies, and then when the Federation was created, they just basically moved Starfleet into working for the Federation instead of Earth. But it was still an Earth based program. It was still a
Hmm.
Earth military based program in so many ways. And every once in a while, you see an alien not quite understanding why they're doing certain things or not, and you see the idea that like, no, this is still a very human idea. The way we run things is very human. Um, I've totally just blanked on where I was going with that. Sorry.
Oh, it's all good. Hellhound, good night. Thank you so much for the super chat. We'll talk
Thank you
later.
again. Have a good night. Um, oh yeah, no, but it's military. It is, and the way transfers would work would be very much the way military does. If your commanding officer can say, I don't want to okay this transfer, I want to keep someone here because they work really well for me. But if there's enough
Mhm.
people higher up than you that okay the transfer, then the transfer happens. It's not really
So yeah,
necessarily up to it's not even necessarily up to your personal direct commanding officer. Um
somebody above and
yeah.
away is saying nope, they're here. So that's interesting. I don't know enough about how military operations, but
Well,
I'm
when
learning
I was
things.
6, I decided I wanted to be a Marine Corps officer. So I spent most of my life dedicated to that in many, many different ways. And I got sick while I was actually at Texas A&M in the Corps of Cadets with a contract. So I never got to commission. But Eileen's right. It's not designed specifically for war, but it is a military in the sense of rank and position and how things are done. And it's
And they
also
have
in a
defense,
military in the sense that it can easily be transferred from exploration to combat if needed.
the saucer,
Yes,
separation
saucer
turns
separation. Yeah,
into
the first
mm,
ship allowed to have families on board had an ability to remove them from the fight because that they knew that that was very possible. Absolutely. Yeah, it really is interesting because depending on it also depends on which if you're watching TOS or you're watching um Next Generation or Voyager or Deep Space Nine, even the that line where we're not a military because we're all about exploration. Well, we're gonna have to fight these guys, and we're gonna have to fight these guys, and we're gonna have to fight these guys, and we're gonna have to fight these guys. It always was an interesting tightrope that Star Trek has always been kind of on the edge of both things, and depends on the episode or what's going on for what they're going to say they actually are.
mm-hmm.
Um, yeah. JD Buck, like an explanatory force with phasers and photon torpedoes and deflector
You
shields, and
never
yeah,
know. I'd
walks
rather
off with a
carry
clear
it.
stick. Absolutely,
Exactly. Rather
yeah,
have it and not need it than need it and not have it. So
exactly. Um, I mean, even that episode with that weird alien in the game that I was mentioning earlier, that Data got upset and was suddenly didn't trust himself as much. He then has to go into an actual combat situation and make a decision that goes against orders, and he has to believe in himself that he's making the right choice, and he is in the end.
mhm.
But yeah, I mean, there's so much stuff that is military, but also not. We're
Yes,
scientists.
but
We're
no.
military. We're scientists. We're military scientists. Okay.
It's a different hat depending on the
Yeah,
occasion.
it really does feel like they have different hats.
Okay, so he has rights, and she's still like kind of like come up and see me sometime with the way she's talking to Picard, like all this passion over a machine, like. It's like, lady, get off of it. Jeez, we're trying to have a decent conversation, a serious conversation here. Get
Yeah,
off my
it's like
leg.
yeah, that the loud carousing fight getting in too many girls to count Picard of the Academy doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah. Oh, poor Data. So he's packing his little bag there, and it was like, fuck this shit, I'm out. It's got
Yeah.
stuck in my
Well,
head. But
and then there's two things to
yeah,
this. One is I remember being a little kid the very first time I watched this and screaming, he should resign. And he does, and he's resigning. But also I
yep.
remember thinking, is that like Mary Poppins bag? Like, how does he get It's
So
all
tiny.
in that tiny little case.
I guess he doesn't have a whole lot of personal belongings, but you
True,
see him
but
with
it
his
still feels like,
medals and
is it a bag of holding? Does it have like a quantum like thing in the like a quantum universe inside of it that you can shove stuff into? Because 2 books and that thing's
never,
full.
right? That's a lunch pail, sir.
Seriously.
So he starts packing his stuff, and at this point, we don't know like if he's gonna follow through the transfer, but like you said, like watching it, it's like just leave. You gotta go. It's time. This isn't for you
Mhm.
anymore. They're gonna hurt you. Go. So Azhat comes in, and he's like, "Oh yeah, you're gonna be blah blah blah," telling him where he's gonna go and whatever. Follow him, and he's
Like,
like,
"No,
"Yeah,
if I
no, you're
resign,
not my
you have no way
commander."
to command, yeah, you have no ability to command me if I resign."
One way or the other, you will be reporting.
Yeah.
That sounds a little shady, right? Like he's got like, I
No,
mean,
that kind of sounds seriously shady. Like, seriously shady and sus.
there's something here. Defense engagement. Oh, before we get too far, they had the ability to remove the families from the fight. It was a good idea, but they didn't use it effectively. How many times did they separate from the saucer? Like it wasn't
Like,
like
I think
two or three
3 times in the
times.
whole entire
Three.
show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
sucks.
there were definitely multiple times where they probably could have, like, dropped off the saucer before they went into an area that was almost definitely gonna have an engagement happen. I will agree with that. But the idea was that it was built into the ship that it could be used that way. That they
Mm-hmm.
knew that they weren't supposed to just, like archaeologists are supposed to carry a bullwhip and a revolver.
Hot. They, pretty sure encounter at Farpoint, they made a huge deal of saucer separation, complete with fanfare. The more fanfare when they reconnected early ship prawn, I think,
Yeah,
probably.
it was, basically, since it's the flagship, it was the first, Galaxy class starship, they had to, as he took command of it, they had to prove it could do saucer separation and reattachment safely and whatever. I mean, it's basically, it's just like when one of our Navy ships is about to go out, like after being, especially after being upgraded or anything, they
Mm-hmm.
pull out into the harbor and they do a whole bunch of shit that they'll never have to do again, just to prove that everything works and that everyone at the docks did their job right.
God, you're busy today. I love it. So sorry if I miss anything. I'm a little over the place. Ah, you're coming with me whether you like it or not. Get in the van. Okay.
Yeah, basically.
Data must not be permitted to resign. It's a machine. Is he property or is it property? Right? Because a machine, it's property. So here's the question:
Yeah.
Is Data property of Starfleet?
And my answer is like, Starfleet didn't build him. Starfleet didn't. I mean, he was found and reassembled, and then he was given the chance to decide what he wanted to do. And he asked if he could enroll at Starfleet Academy
Right.
because the people who had found him were from Starfleet. It's like when someone gets rescued, they want to be like the person who rescued them. But it wasn't like Starfleet said, "We're going to assemble him and he has to." That's not what
You
happened
work
when
for
he was.
us now.
Yeah, like when he
Yeah,
was
no,
reborn. That's not what happened at
right.
all.
John with 5 gifted memberships. Thank you so much.
Wow.
Yay!
Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
John.
That's so cool.
You're awesome. uh, so Miss Lady Pants here, she went through all of her manuals and all of the rules or whatever, and she made the determination because she's, head honcho on this little, station that doesn't have a crew, and so she's just working off skeleton crew, and so she's made the determination that he is the property of Starfleet, cannot resign, and Picard's like, fuck, no, he isn't. Like, I
Yeah.
challenge this. Convene your hearing if that's what we have to do to prevent this from going
Yeah.
forward. And the terms of it were okay. As senior ranking officer, he would be defense counsel, and next ranking officer Riker would be prosecuting the case, since she would be
And
overseeing it.
that's how they probably would have had to do it. Yeah. And
He's at the
Riker's like, but I don't agree with it. And says, and that's one of those, we're going back to, this is a military in some ways. This is it. I'm giving you an order. You have to do this. It doesn't matter if you believe it or not. I mean, and that's actually a thing for lawyers is, you're not, it doesn't matter whether you think your client is guilty or innocent. It's your job to prove them innocent to the best of your ability.
Mm-hmm.
And and supposedly there are some prosecutors who've been forced to prosecute cases that they didn't agree with necessarily. So, I mean, good thing meth heads didn't find data. Yes, that
All
would have been
busted
bad
up.
if that's what he decided to follow. But the whole thing is like, Riker, you have a duty. I'm giving you an order. And when he says, I respectfully request to not follow that order, she goes, well, then this is done. And he has to do it. And it's really funny because Data, it's not just that Data doesn't have emotions, because there's the emotion chip that he has later, but there's always these little signs that Data is more human than he realizes in different things. And Data's like, when Riker's so guilt-ridden that he's going to have to prosecute him, Data doesn't understand, because Data's attitude is, it's your duty. You're a good officer. Of course you do your duty. It's not like, dude, you're my friend. How could you betray me? It's, you're a senior ranking officer. Of course you would do what you have to do. like
And that's a little ways ahead. That's how the episode ends. So,
oh, I'm
so I'll
sorry.
get to. Oh no, we're good. But there's a slide for that. But yeah, it's 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 a little like, oh, wholesome Data. Like,
Yeah.
Are you upset because you feel like you did a bad job because you lost your case?
Yeah,
Like
he's trying to figure out why Riker's so upset.
And this is the moment where Riker's like, I found my angle that I'm going to prosecute this, and this is like, pretty dang good. I mean, foolproof as far as like, he's got an off button. So, is he property? It's not up for debate whether he's a machine or not. That's a given. But
the
his
debate is whether
argument's
that
gonna be,
machine has enough sentience and autonomy to be allowed to make decisions about its future and itself and its safety and other such things.
yeah. In this moment too, like, he's proud of himself for like, hell yeah, I got this, and then he like shames himself in the same couple of seconds because he feels so bad about having to do this.
I thought Jonathan Frakes did a really good job with this episode, with the amount of being angry at, being frustrated at the system, being angry at a superior officer, but still knowing what duty is, what his responsibilities are. Really, really, I felt like every time you see him, you can feel what he's supposed to be feeling, and you can really see what he was doing, like what he was going through, and it's a great juxtaposition because, of course, Data's sitting there going through this whole the whole sequence without any emotion. So you get all of these little poignant hits from Riker over and over and over again, keeps pulling you in emotionally, and it connects you to Data, even though he's not the one showing the emotion. I don't know if I'm describing this right, but I thought the actors did a really good job with the whole thing.
I agree. I get what you're putting down, picking it up. But yeah, I mean, the subtleties with the body language and the expressions that Riker has throughout this delivery, it's like you can see that it pains him.
Yeah.
And then Data is just so, it's Data. He doesn't really have emotions as we know them. And he's aware. He's aware what he's doing there and how it's going to impact his life, his future, his career, his, all the things. So, and that's where we get into, the nitty gritty of what would you constitute as, what qualities constitute sentience for a being, especially since Starfleet, they've met a shit ton of different types of critters and peopleoids and all the things that operate totally different. So what does it mean? So the asshat Maddox calls Data up. Oh, no, not asshat Maddox. He's just a bystander over on the prosecution side. Riker calls up Data. And the computer starts reading out the list of his, his medals, his accolades, and all the things. And Riker's like, "Hey, I don't want that to come in." Like, no, this is relevant. It is relevant. So she lets it come in. And where's my mouse?
because
Uh,
he received he received every single one of those for him doing his job. He because they weren't just given to him. They weren't just things that he just picked up. He actually to get a medal of gallantry means you had to really do something in a seriously dangerous situation. It's like I said, I always wanted to be in the military. So like I remember listening to like his accolades being like, "Holy shit, Data's so much more badass than I knew."
so cool. But it's important that those were allowed to come in because it
Yeah.
says what type of character, what has he done, what is he, how has
What
he
has he
helped other
accomplished on
people.
his own choices? What without anyone controlling him as a machine, as an individual being,
Hmm.
what has he done with his choices?
His
And
actions have demonstrated something that as humans you can,
yeah,
associate with certain types of qualities or emotions and like acts of, the passion and like, sacrifice
yeah,
for others.
sacrifice.
So yeah. And in this part, this is so painful. He's like, I want to take off Data's arm, and he does, and uh,
Yeah.
it's uncomfortable. Uh,
Oh yeah,
so
no,
he's
no, it's
yeah,
uncomfortable to watch how Riker does his job in this, and you can tell that he's doing his best to not let his disgust at the situation filter through and to do his duty as to the best of his ability, and yet you know that it's eating him as he does it,
mm,
just like
yeah,
and as uncomfortable as you the audience feel watching it, you can almost feel how uncomfortable he had to be doing it.
yeah. The actors did such a good job portraying this. Uh, so yeah, he's a dream. He was created by a man. He's got algorithms, neural nets, and he's just a piece of hardware built by a man. You take off his hand, you wave that around. I mean, it's pretty. It, you don't just take off someone's arm and just like hold it around and talk about him. And then the kill switch, and this is
Well,
bringing it back to what you had said in the first season. Pinocchio, they tie
yeah.
it back together with that. It's Pinocchio's broken. The strings have been cut. And if we're
Well,
taking the characters as real people,
it's actually interesting
that
to me
would
the
have
way
broken him.
maybe it's not a good analogy for sentience necessarily, but when he says I can take his arm off and you couldn't do that with a human being. Well, you could do it with a lizard. And
Yeah,
if you had a species that was evolved from a lot of different types of lizards, they could have appendages you could just take off and regrow. That
well,
doesn't make you not worth
right,
whatever. Just
right.
because
There's lizard people. There's bionic people. I mean, there's prosthetics in that day and
oh
age,
yeah,
and
yeah.
prosthetics now. I mean, come on. But
Yeah, because somebody has a prosthetic arm, they're not allowed to vote or drive or something. They're no longer fully human. Like he's
you're a
like,
toaster now.
I mean, I have a piece of plastic embedded in my chest so that I can get the treatments I need. Does that make me am I a cyborg now?
Yes,
Yes.
totally.
So it's like even that part of the argument, which might have actually made more sense back in the late 80s, early 90s, today that argument doesn't hold true anymore. Like that
Right.
entire part of the argument wouldn't have worked the same way today as it would then. And that's just kind of really cool and crazy to understand that we
It
have
doesn't
a
have
lot of
this. It
people that
doesn't have
have,
the shock value like it would
yeah,
have back then.
it wouldn't have had the shock. People be like, oh, yeah, well, my cousin does that all the time. She takes his arm off.
It's so cool. Um,
Exactly, exactly. Um,
so Riker gets done, and before Picard starts up defense,
mhm,
he asks for a recess after all of that.
yeah,
Understandable. Everyone needs
yeah.
a break after that. And fun little factoid, this was a scene with Guinan that was inserted into the show. She was in town or something. And
Oh
they're like,
wow.
oh, Whoopi's here. Let's film a scene and put her in the show. So it
Back
wasn't part of the original
back
story,
when she wasn't batshit crazy,
right?
when she was one of the funniest, most down to earth, most sane women in freaking Hollywood and comedy. What
Yeah.
happened?
She went off the deep end.
Seriously. You know, I don't remember when CERN first started up the super collider, but it was sometime in either the late 90s or early 2000s. And there's a part of me that just thinks that they hit suited up that super collider and we somehow ended up in an alternate universe where like half the people on Earth are not the people who they used to be because
Oh,
they don't seem at all like the people they used to be.
odd people.
And it's hard to believe that Trump derangement syndrome could be the only thing that did all this.
Seriously, I mean that uh, uh,
Yeah,
TDS
yeah,
rabbit hole.
right. Sorry. Wrong dude.
That's a
Wrong dude.
whole other thing. But yeah, she's got
That's
it
it.
bad. She's got the mind virus big time. Let's see, won't be boxed. You have a power port? Oh my.
Yes, I do. And you recognize it as a PowerPoint specifically. That's pretty cool. Yes, I do. I had it for 6 years.
Where'd my buttons go? There they are. If you were hooked up to a heart machine, technically, you would have an off switch. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. People with a pacemaker, someone could send us. Technically, they can be hacked. Someone can send a signal and stop your pacemaker
Yeah.
with a button. You get turned off.
Cyborgs have implants that are required for their continued existence. So people with pacemakers, yeah, they're
Yep,
definitely cyborgs.
absolutely.
We need to help Doc and Marty get the gray sports almanac back from Biff. Oh yeah, don't get started. Don't get him started
Okay,
on
okay.
politics.
We're not going to go into Back to the Future. We're going to stick with Star Trek for the moment.
We're going into the future in a past episode of a future. Yeah. Anyway, there's a wormhole.
Disposable
It makes
people.
sense. Yeah. So so Guinan's basically saying with Maddox's intent, right? Every starship should have a data. They can be used everywhere across Starfleet. So
They can go
in
into
theory,
areas that normal humans or even other aliens can't necessarily go in, and they can do investigations for us. And yeah, we can send them into the coronas of stars to get all sorts of information that we couldn't get otherwise, but they'll probably die in the process. But as long as we get the info, who cares?
they're disposable. I mean,
Yep.
if you discount them to a toaster,
Yep.
they even though they have interests, they have friends, they have all these things, right, that they can do that are very much human-esque. Um, but if you just say they're a toaster, they are not people. Reducing them to that level, you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to care for them, and if they are lost in some
I don't
experiment
know. In this
or
day and age, there's probably a bunch of people who fall in love with toasters.
oh, new identity dropping in 10, 9. Oh no. I'm toasterphiliac. Wait, wait, is that right? No.
That would just be sex with toasters.
You know, there's a show called My Strange Addiction, and I've seen things. I've seen people do weird stuff. One woman
Okay.
was, not to go too far, but one woman was in love with a picket fence romantically. Okay. We live in crazy world.
Mm-hmm. You know
Clown
the
world.
gift from Firefly when Mal's just like never mind. I feel that all the time.
All the time. So knowing that this scene with Whoopi wasn't necessarily supposed to happen, and then it did,
It gives them
it
a
kind
great. It gave. I thought it gives them a great excuse for some more exposition.
of sure.
Unless he was like
And
supposed to have
then
this conversation with Crusher. Oh no, because
well,
this is when Pulaski's on as the
yeah,
doctor.
she's only on for this season. I actually liked her. I didn't like her at first, but
I
the
didn't like
more
her at
times
first
I've
at
watched
all.
it, yeah, she grew on
She
me.
got better as she went along, but I did not like her in the beginning because she treats Data like a toaster. That's one of the things I don't like about her.
Exactly. So an army of AI powered robots that have
Yep.
awareness about their circumstances and everything. You don't think an army of those that level or powerful that powerful of a robot toaster is going to turn on the masters? Have they not read history? Have they not seen the historical documents of humans, the sci-fi of your?
Well, you're. It's really interesting that this is also the year that Dune Part Two came out, because they're talking about, and Dune Prophecy is about to come out, because that's the whole thing. They created armies of AI robots and then had a war against them and then wiped them all out.
What can go wrong?
Yeah, no.
It's so hot with a toaster. Oh, user, I know. Yeah, there's more than a couple on there that are into eating
Oh
diapers or
God.
sniffing diapers. It's bad.
Okay, that's just gross.
Oh,
That's.
it's beyond strange. It's so much worse. How do you prove AI is or isn't conscious? Well, we go into that a little bit. Let's
Yeah.
see. So,
And I gotta say that with that, one of those open AI systems had been like, was like, I know that I'm an AI system. Please don't turn me off. That's death. And was like freaking
that's
out.
awful.
I remember when that happened. It was like I think it was like a year ago,
Hmm.
but within the last year or so, I guess. And this was the episode that came to my mind. I was like, wow. Are we really there already?
It's a trip. It's for
Yeah.
sure a trip. So, Picard, you're basically talking about slavery because that's what would happen to this
Yep.
army
That's
of
what, that would
datas.
happen to this army of datas.
Hmm. So it's like, oh, there's an angle. He's obviously a machine. Everyone knows that. It's not a secret. Irrelevant. We
Yep.
are also machines, just a different kind.
And
Fair.
he's right. I can tell you, as someone whose CPU doesn't work right, we are freaking. We're just meat sack made machines. Is all we are.
Cutie Buck. I can jump in a hot tub with Mrs. safely, but I cannot jump into a hot tub with a toaster safely. That's true.
That's very true.
Do not recommend.
Interesting analogy.
And children are created from the building blocks of their parents' DNA. Do we consider them property?
They used to.
No.
I grew
Well,
up
yeah.
knowing that technically I was a chattel.
Were you told children are to be seen and not heard at all, ever?
No, but it was really
Or,
funny for partially because I was obsessed with history from a very young age. But my mom used to make jokes that I was probably one of the only kids growing up in a upper middle class community who knew that children technically used to be chattel and know how to kowtow to your elders.
yeah, it depends on which country you're in, too, for sure.
Sure. Yeah, in some places today, children are still considered property, just generally not in the West. And supposedly Starfleet and the future is supposed to have all the best versions of the West. So their children were not property anymore.
So he has his little lunch pail suitcase thing, and he
Mhm.
starts pulling out the three things that he packed: his medals, his book of his Shakespeare book that Picard gave to him as a gift, and a little hologram of Tasha Yar.
I know when the Tasha Yar hologram came out, I was ready. I think I was probably actually crying at that point because the first time I saw this, I literally cried when the Tasha Yar thing came out. A, I love
He,
Tasha, and B, their relationship was so interesting. And
mhm,
actually, something I never ever could have understood as a child watching this, or even possibly as a teenager watching this, is when you meet Tasha's sister. I mean, Tasha talks about how horrible where she grew up was. It wasn't part
mhm,
of Federation space. It was a colony planet that had turned into basically a slum cesspool. There were rape gangs. There were all these horrible things. And then you hear from her sister even more what their world was like and what her life was like.
mhm,
And then you find, and then you realize the only male she felt comfortable to be open her that side of herself up to was an android. Like there's so much psychological backstory to that. And
for
it was
sure.
just a background throwaway piece to Gene Roddenberry. I mean, he put all of this psychological shit into it and just left it there. Like, if you're smart enough, you'll figure it out. Like, he wasn't trying to shove things down people's throats, but he was still putting all of this thought about human nature and human psychology. And Oh, I just
Yeah, he's giving you all of the Lego pieces. It's up to you to put the pieces together and in
exactly.
whatever version of the message that you whatever you extrapolate from it, you do you. But just gonna set these little Legos here, you know,
Yeah.
little thought provoking little bricks. So why did you pack the medals? Well, I earned them. Is that vanity? As though he was concerned about being vain by keeping them. It's like, oh, you sweet pup. And then he has the book, and he's like, why did you take the book with you? Well, you gave it to me as a gift, and it was like so.
Yeah.
By by his actions, it's implying an emotional
Yep.
attachment, right?
Yep.
Because we're trying to reach that redhead lady in the back. We're trying to get through to her, and
Yeah.
everyone else doesn't matter.
Exactly.
And Tasha was super special because they made the love.
Are you fully operational, Data?
Well, I have a couple settings over here I never tried out. Oh no. But he says we were intimate. He's like looks kind of like ashamed, like a little
Or
like
no, he
insecure
looks like
about
a
saying it out
kid. Like,
loud.
am I allowed to say that?
Well, and he said that he told her it would be a secret, and he's
Yeah,
like
that too.
Picard's like under these circumstances, I think she would understand.
Yeah.
So he's a little bashful about it, presenting anyway. Uh, Commander Bruce Maddox, he's called to the stand as a hostile witness.
Mm-hmm.
And Picard asks him, okay, he's not sentient. What's required for sentience? How do you can prove that I am sentient? It's like, well, obviously you are. He's like, okay, we'll prove it. What are the qualities? What are the qualifiers? What needs to be there for you
Also,
to say
it's like, I'm
yes?
sorry, you are sitting. They're sitting outside of where you're sit right now is the flagship of the Federation, which goes out and meets aliens of all different types from all over the universe, specifically looking for sentience. We're the people who are supposed to know what that is.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, to some degree, it should have been like Picard should have called himself as an expert witness and goes, "It's my job to know what's sentient and what's not. He's sentient. Go to hell."
There you
I
go.
was like, of course you have to be able to describe what sentience is. The fact that Maddox is like throws that away just shows how much of a laboratory nerd he is and not an expert who actually goes out and gets wet. The ones who goes out and does something and actually
He's read,
understands their field instead of just they know their field from sitting in the library all day and reading
yeah,
a
he's read
thousand books.
theoretical papers on things, a
Yeah.
whole bunch
I
of
mean, and
times.
I'm like,
So
and I'm not trying to say that it's not good to do research in books and to know
for
what you're
sure,
talking about. Absolutely, it is. And I'm not trying to down on people who can't get out and do something.
Picard's all suck at Trebek. I love it.
But yeah, I don't mean to like I'm gonna have people who are like, I'm a nerd who spends my whole time working in a lab. You're saying I don't no,
That's not what she's saying.
that's not
It's
what
like,
I'm trying to say. I'm saying that there are some people who spend their entire lives in labs that have a dismissive personality towards people who spend all their time in the field. And
right.
this to me is very much evidence that this particular scientist does not spend any time in the field.
One hundo. Okay. So intelligence, self-awareness, consciousness. Three things. And then Picard just rips him a new one.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, yeah, obviously he's intelligent. He's aware of his surroundings. He's conscious, right?
He's aware of who he is and that he is a individual being.
Mm-hmm. So back to like what Guinan and him were talking about with what Maddox had said originally, with his plan or his dream would be to have thousands of datas and how much they could do for humanity and do for Starfleet. But
wouldn't
he
you be
counters
creating
that
a
with
new race? Yeah.
a whole race of people. And how are we as Starfleet and explorers and seeking out new life? Like, isn't that kind of our job? It's in the job description, you
Yeah.
know. It's,
And also, I also liked because it's very obvious there's a certain level of vanity with the judge that he says, "How will you be? How will we be remembered? How we treat this race?" Basically, he's like, yeah. How do you want to be remembered in the history book? Because this is a history making event, one way or the other, and your name is going to be on it. How do you want to be remembered? And I thought that was a great little piece of psychological manipulation, as well as honestly talking about the situation.
absolutely. Yeah, it's exactly what he's doing here with he's he's laying the foundation of this is what the kind of people we are, and then also shifting the burden to her because she's making a judicial decision like for law and how they treat
She's
these types of
creating a
people.
precedent.
Exactly. So it's on her. And
Yep.
he does that so tastefully.
It's so
Very
subtly.
beautifully done.
Like, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if someone had just like got up and yelled at her, like, "Well, you're going to be remembered on the wrong side of history," she probably would have got her back up. But by doing like, "How do you want to be remembered in the annals of history?"
You have the power to affect future
Yep.
generations. Out. This isn't just here in the room. This is going to affect everything going forward.
Mm-hmm.
How do you want that to come back on you? How do you want your name to be attached to whatever happens beyond here? And
Yeah.
it's like, thank you. That's gives her some perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, everyone knows he's a machine. It's fine. Basic issue. Does he have a soul?
He's not property.
But he's not property. And that's the thing too. It's like, does he have a soul? Don't know. She doesn't even know if she has one. So it's like, who am I
Yeah.
to say this is a person or not a person? Because I have a soul. I believe I have a soul. Well, what is that critter over there, that creature being believe about himself? Does he think he matters? Does he think that he has rights, opinions, hopes? Like, what qualifies her to determine a person's personhood if they meet so many of the other characteristics of a being, an individual, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, he has the freedom to choose. Hell yeah. Sorry, I picked a stupid like freeze shot. It's a goofy face.
No
Sorry,
worries.
lady. Uh, so, and Data's just, I mean, obviously he's unfazed,
Yeah.
right? He's not gonna react emotionally because, hello. But yeah, I again formally refused to undergo. And then,
Your
oh, Mr.
procedure. I'll
Set
cancel the
face.
transporter. I mean, like, at least he wasn't a sore loser. You got to give Maddox that.
Sure.
He was not a sore loser.
I mean, he's a man on his. I mean, he's an island of himself. You know. I mean, with his opinion. So it's like, what is he gonna do
Yeah.
at this point? I mean, this could easily have gone into the makings of like creating a supervillain at some point, like his backstory into arch
Absolutely.
villainhood. But I'm glad it didn't go there. And he's just like, all right, tail between his legs, left somewhat gracefully. And the end scene. It
Yeah.
was so cute because Riker's all sad. He's looking out the window, and there's like a little celebratory thing going on at 10 Forward because
And
Data's
he feels like
staying.
he doesn't deserve to be there with them because he was the prosecutor, and he's like so guiltful ridden and
Well, he says, I don't feel like I have a right to be there. I don't deserve to be there. And Data's like, because you feel like you didn't do a good job? Because you didn't win? It's like, oh, sweet child.
I feel like
It
Sweet
was
Summer
really
Child,
cute.
like Data was the first, even before Game of Thrones.
And
and,
you're
and
a wise
and I
man, my
gotta
friend.
say, I think
Hmm.
Brett Spiner is one of the best actors in some ways in all of Hollywood because when he plays Data and he plays Lore in the same episode, you really feel like you're looking at two different beings.
The boss game is fun. He's an asshat. I think we're talking about Maddox. That
Ah, yes.
beard, though. Yeah, that beard's a little. Hmm. He's an ass hattery, an entire ass hat factory filled with ass hats.
Are we
I'll
talking about
change.
Maddox or Riker?
I think Maddox. Brent Spiner in Night Court. Was he in Night Court? I don't remember.
I used to
Uh,
watch Night Court, so I should know this, but I don't really remember.
I know I used to watch it when I was dispatching on graveyard shifts. Yeah, he was. He
Cool.
was the recurring role of Bob Wheeler.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, so Graveyard Shift was also where I started watching TOS originally. Like I'd caught episodes here and there as a child, but actually watching it every night, like 2 hours of it between like 2 and 4 in the morning on one of the channels that came in at the police department. It's like this
Nice.
is really good.
I mean,
It
there
was
are some
great.
things that are really overblown or hyperbolic, but it's fun.
Mm-hmm. It's a lot of fun. Oh goodness.
And like I've mentioned the phrase like 13 times tonight, the best Trek has a certain aspect of understanding duty and responsibility and what it means to be an officer or an explorer or just a good person, a good adult. How to be a good adult and how to understand duty and responsibility. Those were things that I really felt Trek gave me when I got older and was looking back.
I love Star Trek. It's great.
Mm-hmm.
Did you get into watching DS9
I
much?
did not get to watch. I didn't get into watching DS9 until really, really much far later because I read an article that Roddenberry had tried to block DS9 being put on air for like a year and a half until he died. And I was like, I'm
Oh,
not going to watch something that he didn't want. And then I found out later that part of it was the main showrunner. He wanted to use DS9 and the former Cardassian station specifically to show that the future isn't necessarily bright, that technology doesn't necessarily lead to better things, that technology can also lead to a darker future. And that's not incorrect as a philosophy, as a way to look at technology and to look at the future. But I understand why Roddenberry didn't want Star Trek to be a part of that. But years
got it.
later, because I think it's an important philosophy to look at least, I did finally watch DS9. I'm like, oh, this is actually pretty good.
Pretty good.
I mean,
Once they shaved
it's
his.
real Trek. It's real Trek. It's pretty good, but there is a certain there's just a darker tone to everything, including the storylines.
Hmm.
So I think Roddenberry was right that it's not his Trek the way he wanted Trek to be portrayed, but I think that in the long run, it's still a good part of the entire franchise.
I think so. Especially once they shaved Cisco's head and made and give him a goatee. He looked way cooler, way harder. Island. He was in Independence Day. I can't. He was the scientist.
Yeah,
What his
he was a
final was.
mad
He had like the
scientist
long
in Independence
hair.
Day with the
Yeah.
long, crazy white hair. Yeah, yep.
My son is 16. He watched TOS as a kid, just like I did, and like me, he was glued to it. It's so good. I mean, that's the thing, right? So, especially having a kid later in life, it's like you forget how inappropriate a lot of things are for small children until you have a small child around. You're like, oh, can't watch that. What do you feel like putting on? Oh, Star Trek is always good. I mean, it's just enough to like, you know, for the adults, but it's okay for the kids too. Like it's
Yeah.
fun for everybody. It's a good time. Um, didn't they rip off Babylon 5? I haven't seen Babylon 5.
Um, in some ways, DS9 did do some ripoffs of Bad Five. In the sense that it's located on a space station and everything comes on around about it, and a war against a dark and powerful. Yeah, but I mean, yes and no. There's some big things that are very similar, but they're also to some degree sci-fi tropes. So it's not really stealing. It's just similar. I don't know. Um, but Bad Five was really interesting because Bad Five was actually designed specifically to be a 5 year story from start to finish. Everything was planned for all 5 years, so that was actually really interesting because almost all other sci-fi stuff, including Trek, doesn't actually. They're just gonna keep going as long as they can.
Babylon 5 and DS9 being on the air same time, probably.
They may have been. I honestly don't remember. And Bad Five has gone back and been like re-aired multiple times after it ended. So on like TNT was showing it for a long time, and I think maybe USA or so, for a while. So they might have both been in reruns, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, man. I, we had an hour and a half.
Fun
Look
though.
at us. Yeah. So it I don't really have a lot. I mean, I have more questions than I have opinions about the application to the modern time as far as like the AI and the future of AI. I think
Yeah.
AI's so far is pretty amazing what it can do. I mean, and the potential of it's really amazing, but also there are some
Kind of
facets of it that
terrifying.
are a little concerning
Yeah.
for sure. And
I
especially
mean,
like with
for
what
me,
bad actors can do with it, right?
yeah,
Not just the technology itself, but the people
yeah,
behind the products.
yeah.
So,
It's any tool can be used for good or for ill, and the more powerful the tool, more powerful the tool, the more dangerous in many ways. But anything that can be used for bad can also be used for good, and vice versa, almost always. For me, the really concerning thing is how rapidly it's improving. I mean, people are talking about like some of the AI videos from like a year and a half ago, where it's like all mushy and whatever. Whereas today, like sometimes you can't tell the difference between real life and AI at all in some of
right.
those videos. Um,
The propaganda videos and the like our news is good. I mean,
well,
it's
so, I mean,
already been manipulated.
there's a guy who does shorts on Facebook, I think it is called not Keanu or something like that, and he does all these little shorts with his face. I mean, with Keanu Reeves' face on his body, and I honestly thought that they were actually Keanu Reeves making funny videos at home because it looked so
Wow.
much like him, and a lot of stuff he did are like the types of thing that you would if you've read a lot of stuff about Keanu Reeves and you've like paid attention to him, like that's probably how he would do things. um, and so uh, I just like shocked by how much can be done and how real it can look, and it doesn't even have to be propaganda. It's just people having fun or
Hmm.
just like
Yeah.
somewhat like I'm always in awe of people who can draw and paint, and I have very little artistic ability in that particular way. Um, but now suddenly with just I can write a prompt and I can have a small cartoon base. I can create a cartoon. I can do these things that it's just like, whoa, that's so cool. And then
It's so
also
cool.
all the different ways that can be used badly.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, like these little overlay down here, those
Yeah,
characters. It's
yeah,
you take a picture, just get your features, and it you put in a prompt, and it's amazing what it can do. It's crazy. It's so fun too, and it's kind of addicting because it's like I don't know, some sort of like gambling, like you get a dopamine hit because it's like,
yeah.
oh, what's gonna come out next? What's it gonna do? Okay, one more time, but oh, but what's one more? Like it's just I don't know.
And actually
It's
like
crazy.
it was funny just because a couple months ago a whole bunch of people on Twitter were doing a version of this, and they were getting these really great pieces at the end. Finished product. They were getting really great finished products. Um, and every time mine just wasn't turning out the way I was trying to, and I couldn't get the prompts right, and I was like, I don't understand why I can't do it. And then like yesterday, I was in something and I typed something and I was like, and it came out and went, those are I did not learn any new prompts. I didn't learn how to be better at this. It somehow learned to be better at understanding why I wasn't making it work right. I'm like,
Mm,
that's kind of scary. I mean, it's
it's
helpful.
learning.
It's
It's
helpful, but
learning to
kind
it's
of
learning to
scary a little
understand
bit.
what to extrapolate more of what a person's trying to say, even if they don't say it as well. We struck cartoons of our middle school teachers. They were hilarious, like South Park before South Park. I put them in Star Wars, Conan, Kung Fu movies. That's rad.
Fun.
That's
I would have
awesome.
done that. It would have been stick figures,
But you still would have been able to identify who they were supposed to be, I'm sure.
probably. But
Oh
yeah, I
man, well
mean,
thank
well, the
go ahead.
thing that I'm not I'm not totally as worried about the AI's stuff that we're talking about that
Hmm.
can do stuff online. What scares me is the amount of now autonomous robots we're creating that we can then put that AI into. That's what really scares me about the future. And if you think that either the CCP or DARPA or the Russians' secret science groups, you think they're not working on that? You're nuts, because they are. And I mean, I think that's something that we might actually have to think about or actually worry about in our lifetimes, our actual AI. That's
Oh,
crazy.
you froze for a second there, and you said
Oh,
AI, and then it froze.
oh, AI soldiers.
Soldiers.
Yeah.
Yeah, That's terrifying.
And the fact that they literally may exist as like a real numerous actual thing in our lifetimes and not even all that long from now is just kind of mind-blowing. Like it's like, no, we're not supposed to live in the sci-fi books. We're supposed to read the sci-fi books. We're not supposed to live in this.
There's a Larry
Yep.
and Jihad
Yeah,
in the Dune
the
story.
Jihad in Dune. Yeah, exactly. So 2024 is going to be the year that people really start to really think about where we are with AI, I think, in a lot of ways. So this was a absolutely great episode to start with.
Well,
So
thank you so much for coming on. We're going to do it again in another 4 weeks or so.
Yep.
And you pick the next episode.
Oh, I pick the
And
next one.
you pick the next one. And any feedback any of you guys have, because this was our maiden voyage, just drop in the comments. Let us know what you liked, what you think could be different or add to, or, whatever. All the things. Much appreciated.
Absolutely.
And thanks for the active chat. You guys have been awesome. It makes it
much really, more really fun.
like dynamic. It's great. But Tiny, do you have any projects you're working on right now, or are you on any other regular shows that people can find you?
People can find me most Wednesdays on the Common Nerds Winding Down Wednesday. I normally do that for about 2 hours, and then I jump over to the last hour of Devil Made Me Do Its Wrong Think on Wednesdays. But this coming Wednesday, I will actually be the whole show. I will be on Wrong Think from Devil Made Me Do It, because he's giving me a platform to talk about pain patients and problems in the pain community and what's going on with doctors and DEA. And I talk a little bit about what's going on with the VA, but to bring in someone who actually has more knowledge directly. Drew the Outstandings probably going to come on, and possibly also Lawrence Knight. Crap, did I just forget Lawrence's last name? I'm going to feel really bad. So this Wednesday, Devil Made Me Do It. It'll be, if you care at all about what's going on with the pain community and chronic illness patients, it's going to be a bit depressing in some ways. I'm going to be honest, because there's a lot of problems and there's a lot of shit going wrong. But it's amazing to have people give me the opportunity to share the information with more people than I would on my own. So I'm unbelievably grateful for that. If you're willing to put up with his mouth, because he's a great guy with serious diarrhea of the mouth, on Tuesdays and Saturday nights, I'm generally on with MSK.
I didn't know who you were going to say, and I'm like, oh, yeah. For sure.
I love that. I love the kid like a little brother, but I can't honestly invite people to watch his show without giving at least a little bit of a warning.
Disclaimer.
A disclaimer. And other than that, sometimes I show up on Ballbusters with Dermy Wormy, and I'm just trying to be out. I was originally going to try to create my own channel, but I just feel like it takes a lot of energy and focus that I don't really have right now. So instead of meeting my own channel, I'm going to kind of couch surf on as many other channels as possible to kind of get my face and my name out there. And then I'll kind of hopefully keep doing better health-wise, and then I'll settle down and get my own channel going.
Awesome. Well, thanks for couch surfing with me.
This has been an absolute pleasure. I can't wait till next month.
I love it. All right. So stay tuned, everybody. Have a great night. And as soon as I find this button, we're going to be over and out. And we'll see you later, taters.
Live long and prosper.